You were not a political prognosticator at all for most of your adult professional life. You were, though, a risk taker. So just talk to us about how you got into this line of work.
Yeah, so I took a boring consulting job that was not a very risky job out of college, and was perpetually bored at that. But had a friend at the job who was starting a home poker game. And I played poker a little bit in college, but I'm really competitive. So I started practicing on the internet, playing games for fake money, for free money at first, which wasn't very fun. I mean, poker's a game meant to be played for money. Um, but then deposited money at one of these gray market, shall we say, online poker sites and started doing really well. I mean, it was a poker boom. So you had a lot of dumb money in the poker economy. So being mediocre was good enough to, for a period of a couple of years, win a lot of money. Um, in 2006, the US Congress passed a law that basically banned internet poker, took away my livelihood. At the time, it was Republicans in charge of Congress. So I was upset about that and started following politics more carefully. Then in 2008, I was living in Chicago, 29 years old at the time. Barack Obama was a significant figure, obviously, in the Chicago political scene. And so all of a sudden, this guy in my backyard is running to become president. You have all these superstars. You have Hillary and Rudy and John McCain and eventually Sarah Palin. So taking more of a Moneyball, data-driven approach to politics was in the right place at the right time. But before I ever got into politics, I was a professional gambler. And it's kind of when I create a model that has odds and probabilities, it kind of comes from that handicappers, setting a point spread mindset almost.
It makes perfect sense. And then you realized you could actually make a different kind of living out of those skills and got into the lane of predicting elections or probabilities of somebody winning elections. And then, I mean, things really took off for you. You became a big star in America after that huge, accurate prediction in 2008. And everybody came to know your name and you were with the New York Times. And then suddenly last year, it all changed. And there was a bit of a divorce, which I think we were all surprised to see. And I know officially it was like ABC said it was laying off some people. I can't remember the exacts, but it seemed kind of like bullshit. I see you as somebody who I see myself as in some ways. Like, you're better off on your own. You don't need these corporate giants behind you. And in fact, I'm sure it's very freeing not to have them. But can you tell us what happened there about how you split and went independent?
I mean, the problem is we were like a tiny barnacle on like the blue whale of Disney, where they're facing headwinds in terms of like theme parks and in terms of the cable news bundle collapsing for ABC News and ESPN and things like that. They've never had a strategy for us to make money. So even though I think it could be a very good business, I mean, my newsletter now, I don't want to say the numbers, but it's a very good business. Never sign up for something when someone doesn't have a plan to actually turn it into a real business, because you're depending on the goodwill of the CEO or the founder who brings you in, and it becomes unsustainable when political conditions change. I don't think it was anything other than having to do with the economics of the network, but I think they didn't realize the potential they had in this asset, and they laid off 3/4 of the staff. At that point, my contract was coming up. Was going to expire in 3 months anyway. I mean, there was barely a negotiation in the first place, but after that, definitely not a negotiation. But it's been a real blessing. I mean, I just like being independent. The Substack model works really great. I have a podcast now. I have a book. I like dictating my own. I mean, I'm a poker player at heart, right? I don't want to have to play on someone else's schedule, and so it's just very freeing to be able to calibrate and say what you want, how you want it. Be a little bit complex to say I agree with person X about Y, but not Z. It's been great.
So what happened with the New York Times and 538?
That was, I would say, a good relationship. I mean, I was at the Times in 2010 through 2012, at a time when they were growing their digital subscriber base a lot, and 538 was one of the most profitable and popular assets on the New York Times. And look, I have different conflicts here, right? I criticize the New York Times a lot. I was a little bit bitter about it when I left them. I also work for them now, sometimes and freelance for them. I think they've become one of the smartest businesses in media. But 10 years ago, I'm not sure that was true. They had a turnover of CEO, and they've always had an issue where the New York Times brand is the brand, and they are afraid of having too much star talent that outweighs the brand, I guess. And so kind of the internal politics were disappointing in a way. I mean, I assumed I'd worked there for many years. I have an apartment that's like walking distance from the Times office. But look, it's been 12 years now, so I'm willing to forgive that one.
But the reason I ask is I saw a headline on Mediaite the other day suggesting that you were displeased that 538's been, like, the forecast has been suspended. They're now affixing a note to the top of it where it could formally be found, the forecast saying, as of July 21st at 2 p.m. Eastern, President Biden has suspended his campaign for the Democratic Party, for president. And I guess they decided to suspend the forecast. And you suggested, at least according to Mediaite, that this is being done for political reasons. Can you explain that?
I don't think it's being done for political reasons as much as maybe to save them a model they don't trust or that could be embarrassing to them in some ways. They had said back in July that their model had Biden doing substantially better than Kamala Harris, which I don't think made any sense at the time and definitely doesn't make any sense now, given the polling. Their model actually doesn't look very much at polling. It relies on things like the economy and incumbency. So, I don't know why they don't have the model back on. It's one of the most fascinating periods in American political history. I mean, the amount of attention paid to anything having to do with the horse race and politics and polls is very high right now. So I can't speak to what's going on there. But there's an issue, Megyn, where if you leave a brand and they get to keep the brand name, 538 I'm no longer associated with it, but they have the brand name. It's a little bit of an awkward spot if you think they're putting out a product that doesn't live up to, I'm a demanding person, but it doesn't live up to the standards that you created. And they have great people there. The people I work with there are still there, but they hired a new guy that I had feuded with and thought, was not someone I would have hired. And so whatever. I got the model. I got my model. I have myself. And so I got the valuable things out of that relationship. But it's frustrating to have a version of a product that is not the product that you helped create.
That would be horrible. That would be like me somehow losing control of the Megyn Kelly Show and being permitted to go off and form my own show, but the new person could call it the Megyn Kelly Show. I would hate that. Yeah. But do you think that there is? Because maybe they'll start the forecasting now that Kamala's back and it's going well for her. Because to me, it would seem so obvious that they lost interest in doing that when it looked like Joe Biden was doing so poorly.
Well, because their forecasts have been the most optimistic forecast for Biden, right? When Biden left the race, they still had it at 50-50, which I think is simply wrong based both on the polling and based on kind of common sense, right? This is a guy who was having trouble delivering even prepared remarks, and certainly anything off a teleprompter was very difficult for the president. So look, I don't know. The guy who runs the model, I think, has definitely seemed like he's more of a partisan leaning Democrat. But look, you need to separate out your rooting interest from your ability to do analysis and reporting, right?
Correct.
I am, full disclosure, I will vote probably for Kamala Harris. It's not going to matter. It's in New York. But if Trump is ahead by 3 points in Pennsylvania on election day, then that's what our forecast will reflect. And I'm not going to spin it. And I'm not going to indulge, critiques from Democrats. Because people say all of a sudden, when we had Trump way ahead, they're like, oh, Nate is MAGA now, right? Nate's being funded by the right wing. And now that it's 50-50 again, or we actually have Harris slightly ahead, then, oh, you're back in good graces. I think people don't understand that some folks are able to separate out their journalism from, I think it's fine as a citizen to have opinions about public affairs. And for transparency reasons, to even articulate that for context when you're going on a media appearance or writing about the election. But we can decouple these things from one another. I think people should hold themselves to a higher standard of being able to, walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've taken statistics and probability, but those seem like models that one could follow irrespective of one's bias. However, I guess there are some people who put inputs into the models that could change the outcome, and they do.
It's a fine line because when you're building a model, especially for elections, the other thing I do is sports. And in sports, there are hundreds of NFL games played every year and thousands of baseball games. It's easier to kind of have the data speak for itself. For elections, we have one election every 4 years. The political climate is always changing. Conditions are different. So you have to be more assumption driven. And that requires you to think very carefully about what are the assumptions I make if I actually had to bet my own money on this election? That's the standard I think people should use, because otherwise you get in a trap where your rooting interest tends to, surface in all types of different ways with all these decisions you make when you build the forecasts and how you average the polls together, or what standards you have for X and Y and Z. So it's a hard problem, actually. It's a difficult problem, and the longevity I have, having done it since 2008, is a real asset, because it's not my first rodeo.
Are you ready to transform your nights and elevate your days? Discover the unparalleled comfort and luxury of Cozy Earth. I love Cozy Earth. I love their bamboo sheet set and their towels and their loungewear. Their sheet set's made with premium viscose from bamboo, and these sheets are incredibly soft, and they get softer with every wash. And their breathability, unmatched. They keep you cool all night, every night, which gives you a better day the next day. But that's not all. Cozy Earth's bath collection is a game changer, especially the Luxe bath sheets. These towels, crafted with a unique blend of cotton and bamboo viscose, using innovative technology, are impossibly soft and plush. Quality and durability are at the heart of Cozy Earth. And with a 10-year guarantee, Cozy Earth products are built to last. Upgrade your nights, transform your days with Cozy Earth. Just go to CozyEarth.com/Megyn and use code Megyn for up to 40% off your order. CozyEarth.com/MEGYN for up to 40% off. Mention you heard about Cozy Earth on our show, and they're going to send you a pair of free socks. How do you like them apples? Check it out. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.